Okay, 2:35, let's call this meeting of the Ordinance Review Committee. Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Chairperson James Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Joe Branco,
Here.
Member Karen Duncan, Member Donna Hector, here, Member Randy Renter, Council Liaison Deborah Hines is absent, Alt Member Emma Davenport, here. Okay, very good. 1, 2, 3, 4. You got enough to report?
Good. Any public comment?
No, sir.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the consent calendar. Now, first item, approval of regular meeting minutes from May 2nd. Any comments, a motion? Someone needs to make a motion to
I make a motion to approve.
I second that.
Any comments? No? Okay, go ahead and please call.
Give me 1 second, gotta read it in. Vice Chair Joe Branco,
Yay.
okay. Member Donna Hector, ready? Alt Member Emma Davenport, yes. And Chair James Miller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, did you cut and paste these report?
I cut and paste. Where, what?
We've got all the reports.
I just didn't delete them out.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, I guess the only report, city manager and city secretary.
I don't have
any. None? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to unfinished business. The first item, which is listed as number 2, discuss and take possible action on final draft of revisions to chapter 93, fire prevention and protection, as prepared by the city staff. There's one thing I noticed. My notes show that on 93.18, item A, where it says unlawful to burn outdoors within the city unless such burning is authorized by the city by permit. My notes show that we crossed out unless such burning is authorized by the city by permit. You put the period after the second city. I think it should have been the first city.
First city?
I think it was it Randy or whoever who asked the question, is any burning of trash authorized? And it was determined there is no authorization of doing that.
So after the first comment in the sentence.
Where it says material outdoors within the city.
And stop it there.
Period.
Okay.
Okay, and then you added the F.
Yes.
Oh, it's good.
And that minor change on A.
Anything else? Anybody see anything? Okay, and have a motion to finalize that report, and we'll pass it along to council.
I move to finalize.
I second it. Member Donna Hector? Yes. Alt Member Emma Davenport? Yes. Chairperson James Miller?
Yes.
and Vice Chair Durrell.
Yes.
Thank you.
With that slight change. Right. Now, will you send me a copy of that?
With the edit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, then we move on to item 2, discuss and take possible action on the final draft revisions to chapter 94, fireworks, as prepared by city staff. Anyone have any comments? Sure you can't find anything, Emma?
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't here, last month and this confession here.
What's the, after pyrotechnic display, there's a blue period, but then the and the sentence continues. Is that supposed to be taken out? I don't know if that, that's.
Oh, the word and needs to come up. Yeah.
Jim, does that mean I'm getting a reputation with you?
Not in the least.
It's all about commas and chemicals with me.
I think I had one thing to see.
Let me just grab that.
No, it's good. Okay, you want a motion to pass that along to the council?
We send chapter 94 along with the council.
A second?
Okay, canvas. Please.
Member Evan Davenport,
Yes?
Chairperson James Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair DeBranco,
Yes.
Member Donna Hector.
Yes.
Okay, on to new business. At 342, 242, open a workshop to discuss possible revision of chapter 90, animals. We're operating off of this revised text. Emma has brought it to our attention that on 90, on the title, we can have a colon or a dash, but we can't have a.
You don't have to say my name, James. That's what I told you privately.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was an anonymous, request.
I'll make the note for the edit anonymously.
Well,
You have to understand that we welcome those things. We
Yes.
don't, it's not a bad thing.
Either or, just pick one and stick with it, that's all.
Now, the ad hoc committee, what they did is they changed the, definition. It had exotic animals, fowls, and et cetera. We changed definition to exotic or wild animals, and then had a more lengthy list. I believe that was copied off of Friendswood, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But, we thought a more extensive list was probably, we didn't like that wording. Normally not considered a household pet. That's so vague. Unless it open.
Nobody's ever called me normal, you know, and really. So are we operating on what you sent us, the revised text, or what we have printed in front of us?
That's the original text.
Oh,
So we're operating off of the
okay,
revision,
okay, thank you,
okay, which is a result of the ad hoc committee, so.
gotcha.
You don't have to take anything, those are just suggestions from the committee.
Okay.
So if you don't like something, say so.
if we're on 90.01, I'd like to look at typical farm animals. Are we there yet?
Well, sure.
Okay, all right. Right after Jack's, says Jeanette's. Now,
Right.
I haven't been around for, farm animals a lot, but that word was totally unknown to me. It is a small Spanish horse. Well, we've already said horses.
Well, it's also used for
And it's
the
also
female
used for
version.
a Jenny.
So we could just say donkeys. If you want to eliminate Jacks and Jeanettes, we can just say donkeys.
I think that's good.
I just think that's like weird. I mean, nobody knows that word. I'm
Well,
sorry.
some people call them Jenny.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've
that's
heard
what,
that.
I mean, that's what.
Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Okay, oh, it's not.
Jackson Jennings is what I have in the
Jennings.
revised document.
It's on the very, it's right at the word, right after the word Jack on typical farm animals and fowl. And then OTS.
Never mind me.
So,
Okay.
are y'all getting into sex of an animal? Is a Janet a female?
Janet is a female donkey. Jack is a male. That's what the original text said.
Do you guys want to get that specific?
No, she just said, we'll cross them both out and put donkeys.
Now, are you gonna get into mules and other strange
No,
combos of
they're
animals?
parts, no, they would be considered, equine.
If you want horses and
If you want it more specific, put equines.
Equine,
Equine.
equine species, equine.
Equines are donkeys and horses and mules.
You've got horses and donkeys, then you've got a mule
Then you've got
already. You can't have,
I just thought
you can't
that
have a
was-
mule without a horse and a donkey.
So you want equine first, equine hogs, blah, 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 blah. And
Well,
then take off
no,
Jack's.
no,
Well,
just
no,
check-
no,
we'll
no,
just check
no,
what
no.
you said. Okay.
All right, yeah, but if you wanted to just put them all together, that's the fun for all.
Okay.
We're actually trying to reduce that unneeded verbiage.
Then
And
scratch Jackson Jennings and put donkey.
Correct.
That would be,
Number symbol.
Okay, and we skipped over, chain. That was from
Yeah.
Karen. She had a problem with chains because.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there.
So,
And then, and not being kept physically restrained, we just changed that to prevented.
You're still O1?
no.
Yes, running at large. Sorry.
You've moved down. No?
No, she's at running the bar, he's at running the bar, trying to vote for.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay.
You see that?
Yes.
You okay, Jeff?
I'm being recognized.
You may speak.
She called me out a minute ago.
That's because you dinged me the other day when I was talking.
I do have a question that doesn't have anything to do with specifics of this thing, but underneath right there, it refers to ordinance ORD period, and there's a whole list of things. I tried to look that up, like 19-260, because it's used all the way through here.
Mhm.
What is that? I couldn't find it in our, am I looking at the wrong thing? I was typing in, you can go to our website and type in,
Kevin and Suzanne back up.
oh, okay. They could tell me what.
Well,
Go ahead. I just need some information on where to find that, whatever those stand for. To look it up.
Well, Jim, that was an overall question I had. The truth is I didn't cross-check every one of those ordinance references. And my question was, Suzanne, is that something you do?
What?
Every time we have an ordinance reference before it gets published, do you cross-check them?
Yeah.
Or
Ordinance
or do
numbers,
you do
yeah.
that?
I do now.
So what is 19-260?
19-260?
Yeah. It just did, I couldn't get it to come up.
That's in their general.
It came up and showed me little yellow boxes under all the ones it's referred to that has it as a reference, but I couldn't find it. Cause it was on every single thing here.
Oh, that's an old ordinance, okay. I can go pull that out of my filing cabinet.
No.
Yeah, when I type it in, I
See,
get,
it's-
yeah, that's,
but it
yes, you're
doesn't-
right. No, you're right.
doesn't say what it is, and that's what I was just curious.
Let me go get it. Let me pull it on the file, Kevin.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. Trying to research better.
Yeah, I was over at the Barnabas, the meeting about the April eclipse.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. Yeah, and it's just like, what is that? It's raining. It's crazy.
Thanks
Um,
God, yeah.
I'm just gonna direct us to one going up there to where it says, 90.02 typical farm animals. Where you've got it above, it says typical farm animals and mammals, so that needs to be consistent in there.
Yes. Can we do that, Jim? In 90.02,
Yeah.
it says, right above it, says typical farm animals and fowls. We need to be consistent with our labeling and our wording, so typical farm animals and fowls.
Oh, under
in the
90.02.
title and in the words below. I think, everybody, does that
Yeah,
make
I hear
sense?
you. And fowl. Now, that's and I know this is a touchy subject about the fowl business, but I thought of this Saturday at market days. I was a lady who had a pet duck, and she had a cute little pink leash on it and a diaper. And the duck rode on her shoulder, but she also had a little wagon, you know, that when the duck got tired, right on the floor, ride the wagon. I realize it's a slippery slope and we can't make exceptions for everything, but I just can't imagine that anybody would mind. And she didn't live in Woodfigger. I didn't have.
In gray or, you know, that.
Yeah,
that-
yeah, that's
they're not allowed
foul,
to
yeah,
have
and
it.
that's, yeah, and those are wild, yeah. I'm a little cautious about over
Yeah.
like that thing.
What were y'all wanting to know on the 19,260?
Just where to find it.
19-260.
I can make you a copy. The old ordinances are taken off the website.
So it's an old one, is that what you're saying?
So they're not applicable.
Right.
Well, then we need to not be referencing it, then
No.
is our problem.
At the bottom, see, on every one, almost on everything on this animal, 19-60 is referenced. 260, I'm sorry. So that's what I was asking was the double check on stuff like that. So we need to go back. Is that something that happens when we send it to Municode or?
That's a
whatever?
Municode cross-reference. Let me see if there's something else. It's raining, by the way. I hope
Yeah, I
everybody's.
know, it had a lovely sound. I wish I'd have closed all my umbrellas in my water, but, well.
No, it's the most current one, which is super weird.
Because if we go to Wood Creek website and I type that in, it doesn't come up.
If you do, that's what I just did, 19-260, where it's listed is under exotic animals. All these other ones, exotic animals, farm animals, because they're all included in this part. They're all defined here in this ordinance. Y'all want me to make a copy?
Well, but what I'm asking is, why is it referenced if we cannot find it?
Well, it is good.
It is. in
Yeah,
the-
this is good. So,
Let's see now. If I go to the city website
you're wanting
and
the
I go
ordinance
to
itself.
ordinance.
Go close whatever that is. Okay.
May not ever be.
Oh, there, the applicant, correct?
Yeah, but the average citizen
At
doesn't.
the very end.
Well, that's the fastest way I can.
Oh, yeah, I didn't print it. I have a computer, I should fix it
It
here.
says, shall not include.
Oh.
But you're doing it to search inside or this
Yeah.
isn't this ordinance. This is the search for where that ordinance
Oh,
appears
We can.
in our website of ordinance. What the ordinance website is, when you go in,
I mean, I figured that.
Yeah, the purpose is
when
to
you're in
keep the
here, all
government
of our ordinances
outside.
are
And not inside.
and on the website. So the document itself isn't gonna be
I just
in
say,
here.
or king.
Just
yeah.
all the
Compare
reference
king,
points,
to the African
um,
American.
of
Yeah,
the,
king,
of the ordinance.
I'm like,
Already
sure, I want
noted
king.
wherever they were applicable.
I
Does
don't.
that make sense?
Not at all, but that's, I'm not, but my point is, I don't know that the average citizen is much farther than them. You could find that.
If they want specifically the ordinance, they would go into, if they only want to look at the ordinance, they would go in that, in that little camera right there.
But I'm telling you, no citizen is gonna know that something.
That's a really good thing, that's how they. It's not the city. It's-
Yeah, that's not.
It's the
that's
sky,
not the city limits.
right.
Okay, well, if it's not our fault, then we can't deal with it.
Okay, all right, let's go back a minute where it
So it's
says,
like,
where it said typical farm animals.
Let me get
Where-
her.
Jim and I wanted to add in fowls, but then fowls is in the exotic animals, fowls and reptiles right below it. So we need to figure out, either we're gonna have an issue. Right? In 90.01, it says typical farm animals and fowls. Up above, it says exotic animals, fowls, and reptiles.
Okay,
So.
let's go
what do you
to
wanna do?
90.03. That's a holdover from the original paragraph. We didn't delete it. That should be moved up to typical farm animal.
Okay, so fowls
See,
don't.
the original definition was, they had exotic animals, fowls, and
Okay.
so.
What was the revised? See, you're not looking at the
No, I'm
revised.
not.
That's part of the problem is this printed thing is
I
not the
didn't print
revised.
it out.
So
I didn't print it out. That's
Let me
fine.
put it here. We can
Put it here.
Okay.
That's fine. So, I know it's all my fault. Okay.
Okay, you were gone when that was discussed. 90.02 says typical farm animal. It should be typical farm animals and fowls.
And fowls. Sorry, we got me dealing with.
That's all right, keep
Sounds
going.
great. All right. Typical farm animals. And fowls.
Right,
90.02.
that would match the definition, typical farm animal and fowls. And then within that paragraph, where it says typical farm animals, you need to add and fowls will not be permitted within the system.
So then we're,
Cool.
And then going on, 90.03, that title, eliminate fowl and reptile.
In the title
Yeah,
and fowl
And
and
your
reptiles.
and the.
Okay.
Wait,
Yeah.
Jim, are you telling her what's in the revised or are you revising the revised?
I'm revising my,
Okay, so it's now gonna read 90.03. You're gonna read exotic animals, comma, fowl and reptile?
no, it's going to read exotic or wild,
Oh, well, that's.
so it will
you have that.
match the definition.
Okay, but then here, may I ask, I don't happen to have a parrot right now, but I have had a parrot in the past.
Yeah, those-
Okay, that was the next item to move on to.
Okay.
He was talking about pets. If you look at the end of the definition, exotic or wild animals, it lists a number of animals that are maintained as personal or household pets. And he has suggested adding birds. If the birds are maintained as household pets.
Tell us where you are so we can get there.
Okay, the definition, exotic or wild animals,
Give me a number on definition. Oh, this is.
90.01.
Okay. Shall not include ferrets, blah, blah, blah. Shall not include ferrets, yeah, gerbil, well, yeah, but you need to put birds in there, a lot of people have.
That's what we're suggesting,
Yeah.
adding birds to that.
Caught up with you. We're caught up. Okay.
You there?
Yeah, we're with you now. We
Okay.
can add birds to that, it would be a lot happier. Got it.
Did you get that?
Can you repeat?
Sure. The definition, exotic or wild animal,
Uh,
toward the end there, you see that long list, the last paragraph, last sentence,
Last sentence.
long list of household pets. add birds.
Shall not include.
Oh, there it is, okay. Shall not include birds,
Birds, ferrets, gerbils, hamsters.
got it. Okay.
You good?
No, guinea pigs, rabbits, I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
I have rabbits.
does that include,
So,
these kind of things, snakes?
yeah, right, what if somebody has a snake, if that's a snake?
I have a friend, not a friend, but
Well,
Lizard,
my son
it says
wild exotic animals.
that's the problem with making a list. Yeah,
but it's either be specific or vague,
Yeah,
so you choose what you want. Someone's got a pet snake. I don't think the city's going to do anything about
is if they have a snake farm in the backyard or
it. If they
something.
have a snake farm, you can just-
most of them are not poisonous, the more
well,
Oregon's true.
well, not only that, but, I mean, as long as you don't bring it out of your house, nobody cares. But.
Unless you're a wildlife rehabber,
Well, yeah,
and
yeah,
then you live in
Yeah.
the city of Limits, then you have another problem.
okay,
We good?
good.
Okay. So,
Well, that's actually a good point. We don't have somebody is licensed
Right.
in Wood Creek, as far as I know, but is there the possibility of applying for a permit if you are so licensed?
for a permit for what?
It's to,
A wildlife rehabber, like licensed wildlife rehabbers, they actually will have wild animals that they're rehabbing in their house, their backyard. There's a lady over there, you know, over by, the Catholic Church, there's that, Hill Country Premier Lodging, the orange and black vans.
It used to be the cat lady.
Yeah, she had wild animals that she was rehabbing inside and out.
Yeah, I don't think we want anything like.
We don't, I think we want that, you know, but I'm just saying that
Okay.
they have a license, they're allowed to. by
yeah,
certain
no, it is a
municipalities.
license
I just-
procedure.
Because you can smell those houses when you walk by.
Yeah,
There's no way you can keep this.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, let's not go there.
Yeah,
Yeah. We wouldn't want, I'm sure we wouldn't want that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay, we're on 90.04.
Okay, let me see
Um,
my notes. Okay, well,
There
okay.
is,
You have a slip, mostly grammar,
Yes.
that I gave you in the, okay.
have you got that split?
Yeah, it's right here.
It's the very, I think it's the very last paragraph, very last, sentence in at the beginning, 990.04.
So you want to take out from that it is,
Yeah, I
Correct?
think so, if that works.
let's get specific about where you.
She just wanting to change the wording. Now, loudness and duration, which disturbs a person or persons in the, is what
Duration,
Right, so,
after duration, put this in. That's. Sorry, I read it over and
I
over.
don't, I was looking just an answer for that.
You got eczema already.
Trying to get them, because really. You didn't
like
diagram this, if you diagram this sentence. Things modify things that they really don't. Yeah, so if we could just stick, if you think that makes sense, even though it's not really. That
okay, so the sentence would read,
would read.
for purposes of this section, unreasonable loud barking or howling noise is defined as barking or howling, such a degree of loudness and duration which disturbs a person or persons in the vicinity or in the person or person range of hearing.
Such a degree of loudness and duration. Which disturbs that. Disturbs, yeah, but read the rest of the sentence. Such a degree of loudness and duration that it
disturbs. I'm fine with your sentence, but I'm not sure I like to put that, but it doesn't actually matter. I couldn't decide whether it's which or that. Loudness and it is of such a degree of loudness that it disturbs. You wouldn't say if it's such a degree of loudness which it disturbs. You would say that it's so loud that it.
You want to see how many times I reread it?
Okay, so Jim, that is of such a degree of loudness and duration that it disturbs a person or persons in the vicinity or in the person's range of hearing. Would you be happy with that?
Yes, that would be fine.
Do you need persons or person?
I thought about putting in their, PHEIR, but then again, when match it, you'd have to put his, her, or their range of hearing. If you were following your,
You just have to make it easy to understand.
yeah,
You can say person or persons in your hearing, or you can say anybody.
anybody's.
I apologize. What area are y'all in?
Okay, we're at 90.04.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is, we have to have the individual and plural, or just the
It
individual?
would be all right with me to just leave one, but I was trying to follow the structure of the,
What you already have here.
well, what was, well,
I don't actually mind it the way it is, but I'm also fine with what you've done, but. I think the meaning has changed.
well, I think maybe or anyone's, or put it just or in anyone's range of hearing. That works.
Hey, you look who's on the screen.
Hi, Karen.
Oh, hey, Karen.
Well, I zoomed in because I
Yeah, there
did
you go.
Microsoft Teams in. It would not take the password or,
Not in here, she
Okay.
might be able to do
Oh.
something about it.
I'll do this again.
so zooming works.
What do you see? I wasn't comfortable with the first range of hearing, I just couldn't think.
Well, except that
I
we
wanna
do it,
say
except
there.
that we use it other places. I
Right.
think it's more kind of a. Like,
Karen,
no, it's not
Karen.
illegal.
Karen, can you speak?
In
Can you
other
say
words,
something?
I can see everybody. Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay.
We can
Yeah. I was listening to the grammar corrections to individual and plural.
Yes, throw in your 2 cents, we appreciate it.
It's all good.
Okay. Well, what do y'all help me decide, I mean, I spent forever trying to decide, and I wrote it 4 or 5 different ways. Just,
I think the way it already is, I don't have a vicinity. Yeah, I think.
Or-
That it is disturbing to a person or persons in the vicinity.
or range, maybe, or just, or range of, but you don't want of the dog there, that means it's
Okay,
his range.
okay, what if you said of such a degree of loudness and duration that it is disturbing to any nearby person or persons? Would you be happier with that? Is it in the vicinity, is that bothering you?
No, the in the vicinity doesn't, or the, saying a person's range of hearing instead of earshot kind of got me, but it's of the dog, if you diagram the sentence, it says the dog's
His English teacher.
earshot.
Okay, well then scratch of the dog, I agree with that, scratch of the dog.
Anything you wanna do, you can fix it. Leave the of the dog off.
Okay, she wants to leave of the dog off, and like
Referring
of
to
the
a
dog.
person or persons in the vicinity, or just say, or
Just say
in
in the vicinity.
range of hearing, not, or in the vicinity.
Okay, read the sentence, the complete sentence to me.
What do you think? For purposes of this section, unreasonable loud barking or howling noise is defined as barking or howling with such a degree, of loudness and duration, that it disturbs,
It is disturbing.
that it is disturbing to a person or persons in the vicinity. Just
Period.
leave it there, period. Done with the rest of it. Catch mine,
Okay.
right? Use it for scratch paper. That's good. Yeah, that's better.
Oh, simplifying is hard. No.
Your dog is pretty.
Oh, I spent a whole English semester.
Would you like me to read that again?
Nobody.
I got it ending after the word vicinity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we removed them and there,
I thought I heard that.
which is probably a legal term.
Well, I thought it was the dream of it. Yeah. Oh, this is what. Are we moving on now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 90.04A.
05. Oh,
No,
A.
no, I'm just on A now. You have to file a written complaint. What we were talking about before the meeting began, is that anonymous?
Yes. The complaint?
Do we somewhere let people know that? Because I know when my family filed a complaint, we had reason to be fearful because it was, I mean, we couldn't actually be anonymous and we couldn't let the children outside.
Well, if
You don't have to sign the complaint, you can just send it in.
Right.
we handle complaints farther on, 90.06,
Okay.
handles complaints, and if you look at that, what we changed is there's a file procedure for the city of Wood Creek, complaint form.
Okay.
And there's also a specific one for the barking dogs noise complaint,
Okay.
okay?
So
I think-
anyone
I
who
think
looks
that
at
should be
that
in your
form
packet.
can see that they don't have to.
And what we did is we changed it to that, any complaint alleging violation of any portion of this subchapter must follow the procedures outlined in the application for city of, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, it's referring them to the city and their complaint forms procedure, because the barking dog one is pretty extensive.
Okay.
They have to
Okay.
record the time
The
and
document.
duration of the
Okay.
events.
I just wanted to be sure people didn't, once your neighbor knows you filed a complaint, you're the enemy.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because I was considering filing a complaint about the
The
pools,
city would have to answer that.
or about the drought, watering during the drought, I was gonna file a complaint.
Someone comes in and files a complaint, written complaint,
Well, we have nothing to do over the water.
Right.
That's
yeah,
absolutely,
something
you would
like
have to
that.
call out
Yeah,
for any bad.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
no, I think the question is that, anonymous.
Yes,
Oh, we get anonymous all the time.
yes.
But
I
uncle
just
wouldn't
wasn't
care,
sure
they
if it was
just wanna sell
anonymous,
them,
this is
right?
like, last
Why
summer.
would they care from water?
I know now. I wasn't sure looking at the form, it doesn't say it's anonymous.
We can revise it, to say.
But the barking dog, doesn't it require to, file an affidavit with the court?
It's a longer process with, a dog noise, because it has to be documented and everything. We get, yes, complaints just are not just with animals.
Right.
And so in broader sense, complaint can be about trash, feeding deer. We get anonymous reports all the time about
Parking.
so-and-so was feeding the deer, throwing out corn all the time,
Yeah.
so.
Okay,
So inadvertently, they may end up finding out if they're filing an affidavit with the court.
Right.
It could eventually come out there. City can keep it anonymous. We skipped 90.05.
why would we skip it?
Well, because you brought up complaints, which was 90.04A. So I skipped them. You can go back to 90 if you have anything further on
I have a comment on 90.05 when we're there.
that. Okay, we're there.
We're there. Okay, B, this applies to both dogs running at large and dogs under direct. We've already said that dogs cannot run at large. So why are we telling them? Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
We're not being consistent. We're saying you can't let a dog loose off of your own property, but then we're saying that a rule applies to dogs running at large. They're not allowed to run at large.
Dogs frequently get away.
Well,
I mean, they're not supposed to, but wouldn't they still be required to clean up after them?
You don't know where they've been.
you're assuming they're running around.
I mean, we can remove the application to running at large.
I just caught it as an inconsistency that would say you
I
can't. let your dog-
agree, I think that whole sentence should be taken out, because, I mean, we know we're talking about dogs pooping in different areas, so we already know what applies to the dogs, whether or not, however they are taken off the leash or not, and it then says this restriction applies to both dogs.
Okay, so we should, after, this applies
After
to
manner.
take out both dogs running at large.
I would just take out the whole,
To-
I would take out the whole sentence.
Yeah, I would too.
We're already, we know, everybody knows we're talking about dogs, it says at the beginning,
Okay,
you know.
but the sentence also includes, what we did, if you noticed, we took out the reference to quicksand and whatever, but we still kept in
Of course.
golf course, recreation areas, green belts, street right away. So we probably should keep that portion of the
Okay.
sentence in.
The owner handler has from moving any species.
Which part do you wanna keep? Everything else over?
Well, there-
Private manner, period.
We could take out both dogs running at large and just have this applies to dogs under direct physical control of the owner, handler, in areas including, but not limited to, and then have the rest of it. So,
Well, if you specify dogs under direct control, I would leave that out, because then you're saying if you take your dog off the leash, illegal or not. you have to pick up
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
foot.
see what you said. I agree.
Yeah, so I would say this applies to dogs in areas including but not limited to the golf course, blah, blah, blah.
okay,
That's good.
did you get that, Suzanne? So that sentence should read, this applies to dogs in areas including, but not limited to.
Got it.
Okay.
And I really like that you added that privately owned property, because that wasn't necessarily clear in the original, I didn't.
Correct.
So if the dog defecates or urinates on the first, well, with this, nothing about urination here, but on the first, what is it, 5 feet of somebody's yard is really city property? Is that what it is?
Still can't do it.
It's creek right away.
I think we said no to that, didn't we?
Yeah, you say no because it's creek right away.
A couple people walk their dog and this almost every morning,
You still
right on
know
my
it,
grass. Even if it's just right near the street, it's on my grass. They clean it up, but I don't like that if they do it on my grass, and I haven't wanted to say anything because I don't want to.
It's so inexpensive to buy those doggy,
Well, they should poop in the street, you know, and just
but I
like,
mean, people still should keep them on them, for walking their dog.
well, no, he does pick it up, but it's just like, I don't want it on my grass in the first place. Cause it's still there a little bit, you know, I mow the grass or go check the mail or wherever. My pet peeve, but
You and your sheep.
I don't do the other people. I want my dog. I'm not talking about any of your family dogs, a couple other people.
No, no, you don't want any of them near your.
Yeah, I know.
You're a big dog show.
See, to me, it's confusing to have this because we're not working on
So we good with B?
it.
I guess we are.
Yes.
Okay, and then on complaints, we got that. Okay, we took out feeding geese and feeding deer. Not sure why there were separate paragraphs for those, because they're both included in the animals that are not allowed. We just put feeding of wild animals.
And there's, because we're saying animal, that doesn't mean people can't put up bird feeders. I mean, is that understood to everybody? You don't wanna be going around telling people they can't put up bird feeders, they'll come after you with pitchfork.
We could say, you refer back to 90.01 definition of exotic wild animals.
Okay, yeah.
It's, the revised copy is in the back, I just realized.
Yes,
I didn't even
it's
know.
on page 16.
Oh,
gracious.
oh, okay, well, that's a lot less confusing then, okay.
Lead ahead.
Okay.
I just saw it right now.
Yeah, but I don't think that quite covers it, because those birds that feed are wild, they're not kept as household pets. So we probably should put some caveat in there concerning bird feeders.
Are we discussing feeding of wild animals in general?
Yes,
Okay, I would like to ask. You know, rules against feeding the deer, obviously, are not because we hate deer, but on the contrary, we intend to do, people intend to do good by feeding deer. I go up to my son's house last week and my beautiful granddaughter, who is a model human being, has 3 carrots and she's breaking them up and she's hand feeding some does. And I tell her, you know, did you know that you're not allowed to do that? And she's sincere, she's a good human being, and she says, well, these carrots are good for them. And so everybody intends well. Now, I mean, most of us know that feeding wild animals corn is like feeding a toddler nothing but candy, you know, so, but you can't really argue that the carrots are bad for the deer. However, the problem is that, you can't make rules that are say, well, you can feed them a carrot, but you can't. And there are other issues. We're talking about the welfare of the wildlife, as well as the unintended consequences. You get that doe tame, and then she has a baby, and you go out to hand feed her, and year before last, we had a little dog stomped to death right in front of the owner's eyes.
Oh, wow.
The mother, and actually that happened to me in San Antonio. I had a little Shih Tzu, and there was a doe in the front yard, and he went to chase her, and she knocked him over, and fortunately I was standing right there, and I charged and was able to pick the dog up. There was a dog killed here. Do you remember that? By a doe, just defending, and you get a buck in rutting season, you've been hand feed. So there are really very good reasons, but people are emotional about how darling they are. And so is it permitted? And if it is permitted, is it a good idea to put a 2 or 3 sentence reason that, feeding deer encourages them to, frankly, multiply, because they don't, it's a matter of balancing the food supply with the population, and we're imbalancing it when we go in trying to help them. So we have this unintended consequence that we're not really helping them, we're, if anything, hurting them. But people don't realize that. And they just think, well, the city is, I don't know what we mean, if we're being mean, yeah, we're mean. The city is mean. Where there's really some very good reasons. Is that appropriate to put on an emotional issue like this? The deers who congregate in one area, Texas Parks and Wildlife, you can go on their site and read it. They are inclined toward more disease, not to mention the natural population control of how much food is available. And everybody would go to pieces if we had we started trapping deer to move them, right?
Again,
It'd be, yeah, nobody approves of that. So,
Was that done like in recent years or?
20 years ago.
Yeah, took them to Mexico, I think.
Yeah, they did that in Hollywood Park.
yeah, oh, I lived in San Antonio when they were doing that.
Oh, you lived in Hollywood?
No, I didn't live in Hollywood, I lived on Cadillac Drive just down.
Oh,
from
yeah, my mom lives in Hollywood.
But
Yeah, they.
people get really excited.
Yeah, and I was-
Mexico where they were killed and eaten.
Yeah.
Well, so, you know.
I agree, I think.
It's a sweet thing, you know, hand feeding the deer carrots, but there are unintended consequences both for the deer and potentially for the human
And
population.
feeding them a couple of carrots is one thing, but if a group of them gets used to this neighbor, like there's this neighbor who used to live a couple doors over, across the street and over from me. Every day at like 2:00, 6:30, she would come out there with the corn, and so they were so used to it. A whole clan of them would come every waiting, and they're more likely to get hit by cars, which could hurt people, also, and then also, everything else.
Well, it's like so many things we discuss. It's a slippery slope. If you say, well, you can feed 3 carrots, but you can't, we can't make rules.
Well,
Well, but people putting corn out, that could be enforced, because you can see,
Sure.
you know, I mean, feeding carrots, no one's gonna drive and say, oh, you can't
If
feed
you have
it.
a deer feeder, that's
Yeah.
certainly enforceable.
Right.
That's the problem, though, you can't loosen the rules because
Yeah, that's a slippery slope.
you've gotta be consistent
Yeah.
throughout.
And it does say having an established receptacle, or maybe you wanna add or place. Cause I know there was a over there by that, Crystal Falls or whatever, there was a.
But that's that's what you're not supposed to do.
What? Yes,
Establish
right.
receptacle.
That's what I say, it says,
Yeah.
it's limited to having an established receptacle or space where you feed the deer as opposed to somebody who.
I mean, de facto,
Yeah.
if someone goes out and feeds a couple of carrots to deer,
Yeah,
nothing's gonna be done about it.
Right.
We know that.
the lady that used to live on my street, she was like that, she went out a certain time every night. When I moved there, she said, this is the grandmother, this is the mother, these are the daughters. I mean, she had them and she had them all named and they all came up and I thought, no, I know better than.
But feeding deer is illegal. We're not changing that. We're saying,
Yeah.
The
but what
question
we
is,
can do,
are we allowed to make a statement of why?
I'm sure we are.
So,
If not, we'll test it. You can put at the beginning, no, he's just out there watching.
No, she has a question.
Yeah, she's
I
around.
forgot her.
Okay, Karen.
So I think we can pull an easy phrase. I'm on the Texas Parks and Wildlife website, and we can probably pull an easy phrase about, you know, it degrade, they become less wild, they congregate, they spread diseases among themselves. We can find something. I think that would be a great introductory sentence. I don't see a problem with it unless somebody else does.
No, what I was gonna suggest is at the very beginning of that paragraph, we say, due to the fact, or that it will cause blah, 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 it shall be unlawful.
Oh, that's good.
So you can say, you can list, give me whatever reasons you want, due to the fact that it may cause overpopulation, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, don't write this down, we're just talking, but how about, according to Texas Parks and Wildlife, feeding the deer hurts them much more than it helps. Feeding deer, and it encourages deer to congregate in a small area and can disrupt the natural biological balance. That's what I got off Texas Parks and Wildlife.
But we want
That's-
more than, I mean, it's all wild, truly, we want foxes not fed, we want, you know, anything that brings these animals into close proximity with humans is gonna make them dependent for a food source and more likely to have bad outcomes between people and animals. So, I mean, we want it to be generic to all
Right, say wild animals,
Yeah, then
including
yeah,
deer.
Yeah, you could say according to text, like feeding wild animals, including deer first. Yeah, that's a good idea. Mhm.
Maybe put
And
something.
if you said wild and exotic animals, which is a reference back to 90.1, then you can put a verb here.
Yeah,
Yeah, we probably should in that paragraph heading, say feeding of wild or exotic animals. No?
There's no, are there any exotic
Animals
Well,
running around?
that are not wild?
It's just that it's defined in 90.01,
Okay. Okay,
you know,
well,
wild
whatever.
and exotic,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
deer and everything else.
I expect to see a white-tailed deer in my front yard. I do not expect to see a lion.
Yeah.
There was a parrot
From my house.
running around,
Who?
a parrot,
Yeah, they
you
do.
know, or a macaw, it might have been a macaw, it was that big.
King Feet lost theirs.
Oh, was it?
Gray parrot?
so a few years.
Great big one.
Yeah, there was a macaw, it came into our yard.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it was a parrot or maybe it was a whatever.
I think it's a macaw, yeah.
It was a bird. I don't think they ever found it.
They never found it. They got another one. Yeah, maybe that was the one.
No.
Not too bad.
So it'd be feeding of exotic or wild animals.
Put including deer,
Yeah.
because that's what we're talking about here.
No, I'm just talking about the heading. Now getting into
Oh,
the,
okay. I thought you were doing your
No,
stuff.
no.
Okay.
so what do we say, according to,
Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Well, they didn't say wild animals, they said feeding the deer, so I don't want to misquote them, but you can just say feeding wild animals, including deer, hurts them much more than it helps. It encourages them to congregate, well, they were talking about deer. This is what Texas Parks encourages deer to congregate in a small area and can disrupt the natural biological balance. Now, they go into how deer ultimately can starve, you know, but we don't want to write too much.
How about the last part of that? When you talk about disrupting the life cycle, and there's, if
Natural biological balance is what they're
because if you feed deer at your house, not only are they going to have an increased risk of disease, but if mountain lions have, I think it's 150 or 200-mile radius, and if they find out that your house feeds deer, then you're running risk of your snoodle getting gobbled up if you leave him out at night. If you can't get the little mountain lion, can't catch deer. So you're increasing the predator traffic at your house too.
And people's cats, yeah.
And people's cats, there's a lot of cats by my house.
The trick is to say enough without saying too much. There's always the balance.
Well, I think everybody agrees, pretty much everybody knows what natural biological balance is. We have so much environmental stuff that everybody probably knows, has a basic understanding at least of the term natural biological balance.
Karen, do you have do you have a way to word this that you like?
That's fine. I sent a different thing to Jim. It's from, when Texas Parks and Wildlife banned all wildlife feeding at their state parks and campgrounds. And the same thing you talked about, some, bad outcomes for pets. You know, it just disrupts the free range, the free roaming of the animals, and they come into compact areas, and it is just very problematic. So, I mean, it's just what you said is fine.
Word this sentence, yeah.
I think just one sentence and then just go into it. It's probably a better thing to put in a community newsletter or reminder out to the community than, I mean, to keep reminding people the why. I mean, most people know that you're not supposed to, but you know, the deer look pretty mangy, and people feel empathetic and, yeah, we had a doe when we bought our house that would come to the back every day. I mean, I'm like, uh-oh, I know what this is about. So, somebody had hand fed her and they were gone.
Yeah, no, it's hard.
From my experience, most of the time, like that stuff wouldn't be in an ordinance.
That's
That
why
would
I
be-
asked if we were.
That
gonna
would
allow
be,
for
that would be
appropriate-
more in a FAQ that you would have in there rather than ordinance, because ordinance is more just, although it's just facts
Okay.
and whatever, rather than not an
Yeah,
education or a statement of why we're having it.
Okay,
That would be when you pass the ordinance, that would be one of those whereases.
okay.
Whereas the ecological balance of the universe, whatever, that's where you would put it and you'd have it in the ADQ
Okay.
instead of in the ordinance, just because if you put all that stuff in, the ordinance will get bigger and bigger.
That actually was my original question. Is it appropriate to put that in the ordinance? But that's a very good point. I think he's got a good point. We could have a new discussion about a community newsletter, but I'm not volunteering to do it, so never mind. Okay, well, I think Kevin makes a good point. Maybe that's not appropriate for in the ordinance, but.
And if somebody questions the ordinance, they'll call and ask, why can't I feed the deer? Why can't I,
Nobody
And
will
then-
ask, they'll just do it.
So unfortunately, that's,
Well, yeah.
Okay, so we're not gonna add any
No.
explanation, okay.
Just make note that it was a good idea, but.
Well, make sure it gets into the whereases.
the only,
Yeah,
the only
yeah,
thing we're
yeah.
changing was the title. Right.
Right.
do you want to follow that through into the first portion of the text in that sentence?
Yeah, wild or exotic,
Feeding,
exotic or wild.
okay.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate your mentioning that because that is one of the issues we're trying to address is that the ordinance gets so long that nobody will ever read them. So thank you for.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
And the only other change I had was at the very end, 90.99 penalty F. I took out 90.20 since we eliminated that paragraph. Let me ask you about paragraph wordings. When you eliminate, because I noticed before ordinances, they'll jump when we eliminate, so we don't renumber them, we just.
They should have been renumbered when they were submitted. That was 4 years ago.
Yeah, because this one say 90.7 and 90.16, then 90.20. But anyways, 90.20 is eliminated, so the reference in F to it should be approved.
Okay, I have a question on 90.99.
Wait, did we do
No.
21?
Did you do my,
Oh, I'm sorry.
did you do my dash?
Okay, an anonymous person,
Yeah.
on the first,
Gotcha.
in 90.21,
Mhm.
the first sentence. Interfere with the city authorized deer trapping efforts. That should be a hyphenated word, city authorized.
Because we don't want to say the city authorized.
No, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. Are we on 90.99?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's look at B. It says the penalty for any violation of 90.01 through 90.06. If you go to 90.06. Wait a minute, that one's blank. To me, it says through 01 through 9 through 06 shall not exceed. There is no penalty 9006 is a procedure. How can you get a fine for a procedure? So to me, and that follows through, like 90.06 of this chapter on E, it should be like 90.05. And so, do you see what I'm saying?
They need to be renumbered to, instead of 4, 5, and 6, it needs to be 2,
Well, whatever the numbers are,
5.
the ones like 90.06 at this point, there's nothing you can find about it. So it shouldn't be, it says the penalty, there's no penalty on 90.06.
Yeah, that's good.
There's, and if you go
Yes, there
down,
is. Yes, there is. If you go to, B, the fine for the first conviction or violations of 90.06.
but 90.06 is an informational, it tells you about a complaint. It doesn't,
Says you must follow.
Here,
the
let me
procedure
read it.
the law
Any
says.
complaint alleging violation of any portion of this subchapter must be a sworn written complaint filed with the appropriate authorities to initiate prosecution under this section. She's right, that is information. I don't know how you could be
And
fined.
the letter E
even,
needs,
even what you changed and it followed the procedures outlined. It's a procedure. It's not it's not finable. You see what I'm saying? There's nothing you can do about that. It's looking at you. Okay, maybe this will make it easier to understand. Look at F. It says any person convicted of violating any provision of 90.21 through 90.22. 22 is a definition. It's enforcement. It's a definition. So it just say, you could just mark out 90 point. In the, where it says the penalty, you should mark out 22. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
well, here's a point of clarification, Ms. Hector.
Okay.
So on letter B, when it says, 90.01 through 90.06, that can be changed to 05.
05. Yeah, I think it should be 05.
Okay, but then, 7 also needs to be addressed. Because, 90.07 isn't addressed at all
Oh.
under these penalties.
Yeah, good point.
Where's,
Read the deer if you want to, yeah.
90. Okay,
It's-
so
Then
then that
that 7 is feeding the wild animal.
right. Maybe they just all need to be renumbered, Suzanne. I don't know.
Probably, but then another
Can we
weakness
do that?
is that, letter C and D have a fine of 200, and letter E had a fine of 500. Was letter E supposed to be after, was that
See that?
originally deer feeding? And when this revision was done, it wasn't changed in the penalty section?
I don't have a clue if it was, what it originally was. Because here, in this one, it just says 90.06. I just saw that and I thought, that doesn't make sense.
Let me go grab it.
But,
Let me go grab the previous ordinance.
Well, all we did on 6, that's the previous ordinance right there
right
in
there,
red.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
the previous ordinance read, any complaint alleging violation of any portion of the subchapter must be a sworn written complaint filed with the appropriate authorities to initiate prosecution under this section. That was the original wording.
maybe y'all should move complaint to right above enforcement. It just all has to be renumbered anyway. And then all your don't do this can all be together.
that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
That is, actually.
Yeah.
Do you want me to grab the previous ordinance and see what that $500 applied to? This, the one from 02?
Okay,
Sure.
sure, okay. And I noticed that I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is making this less confusing.
Can you see what she means about moving complaints over to where we have enforcement? So that it's not bunched with. The
So
ordinance.
it's not in the ordinance, actually.
So just make that part of amendment 22, is that what you're saying?
Well,
Well,
she's
it's
saying
a-
put it over there, give it, wouldn't
Give it-
have to be
give it,
renumbered, obviously, but rather than having
Because
it with.
I don't see. Yeah. Move. Well,
I think that makes sense.
yeah. You can change the 90.21 to 90 point something else, because we're not using 16 and 20 anymore. But, so change it to 90.21, change it to 20. Or 20, or 16. Or something, I don't know. They're not.
Just change it to an actual word. Oh, you wanna read this?
Sure. We have traditionally on the ad hoc committee stayed away from any of the enforcement or penalty sections, because we always felt that was the purview of the city staff.
Right. Well, I'm not objecting to any of the enforcement, I'm just
So we
saying.
could just say, Suzanne, fix this.
Renumbering is administrative.
Yeah, I think,
There's nothing wrong as far as I'm hearing from the penalty. Yes, Karen?
well, I agree with you on the numbering issue. I think that it would be helpful for this council to pull the various enforcement fines, penalties, blah, 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 together, because there is a single ordinance on them that is completely different from some of the workflow in some of the other ordinances. So, yeah, I also know what,
22.
if reusing, this is a question to the councilor, city manager, reusing numbers for something distinctly different is a problem, or is that, it's not?
Right, but penalties.
That's a good question, I don't know, you're right, we'll leave that with.
Suzanne?
Oh, no, if you, to renumber it correctly, no. That's actually helpful if you take out those old numbers and number it
That's
correctly.
where it says.
So there's no
That's what you need to do.
complication.
Right.
Just leave space so you can insert.
So at one
Or
point
measure.
it said, don't feed the deer, and at another point it says, deer trapping, and that doesn't matter. It's, if it's the same number, as long as the numbering is more sequential, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
That's from the horse's mouth, that's Kevin, that's correct, yeah.
I heard that. But I guess to hand back to city, there are some really strange incongruencies in enforcement across various of the ordinances and definitions inside of some of those. And this one is more simple, but it'd be nice if they all came out with the same flavor, or you were, and kind of aligned with each other. So I think that's part of the reason we've said, these are not things that are easy for a citizen committee to fix.
Well, yeah, that's what Jim was just saying, is that this committee has not really addressed enforcement, consistencies or not, we just haven't addressed that. But
So currently in the city, the penalty for feeding deer is $500.
No, it's up to $500. You
Okay,
gotta remember that. Plus, somebody, if you give somebody a fine, they don't have to pay that fine. They can go to the judge. And that judge will hear that case. And that judge, it's a maximum of 500. He may say, you know what? Those carrots, I understand, $100. So that's why you don't have a set amount in there. It's always up to, or whatever. It gives the maximum amount, but once again, if you go to, you do get a ticket, you get a chance to tell the judge, and it can be reduced.
But feeding other wild animals is up to 200, correct?
Could be, yes.
That's, yeah, that's what it's.
But it's
Where do
our,
those numbers?
yeah,
I would see if it's, I would have to look in. Some of those are set by council and some of them are set by the state. I think like a lot of this enforcement, a lot of these a lot of these city fines are set by the city. Traffic violations though are set by the state. And so there's different people that set the different fines.
Has anybody in Wood Creek ever been cited for feeding wildlife?
I have no idea.
Do you know?
I don't know.
So this probably isn't really an issue. I mean, if you have any sense and you lay out your pile of carrots or whatever, let's say you're not handed it, you lay it on the ground and you come along. If I know that it's 500 for deer, but only 200 for squirrels, I'm gonna say, I'm not feeding the deer, I'm feeding the squirrels. Not my fault. if the deer take it.
Yeah, and I mean, you would have to have, once again, going back to the barking dog, you have to have a lot of documentation
Yeah,
because.
So we do have to have the ordinance, but keep in mind, to the best of our knowledge,
Yes, it never comes.
it's never come up.
Right.
And
What we're looking for is compliance.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
you know, this, hey, please don't feed the deer, it's not in
So
our
that's a matter of
ordinances
public
because
information.
of.
Yeah.
And then you give, you know, you tell them the dangers of that, you hand feeding the deer, that's where the education and,
Yeah.
I mean, we'd much rather do that than start getting a daily fine every time we see a piece of corn and carrot. So yeah, it hardly ever comes up. I wouldn't even, until it becomes an issue. I mean, there's nobody, I mean, we're not out there issuing fines for that.
We don't want to make it an issue, but we do want to make people aware that in
Correct.
intending to do good, there.
Correct. And we have an option if we have to use it, but
Okay,
we're hoping we never have to
Okay.
use that option.
okay.
Well, you know, because there was a person over there and they called us Bristol Falls, over by the bridge over there.
Cypress
Point.
Cypress Point. I
Yeah.
mean, there could be as many as 20 or 30 deer there at supper time when I've been by. Now, I don't think that person lives there anymore, I'm not sure, but I don't.
Well, there's still somebody up there.
That feeds them, so.
There's different people.
Now,
from-
if you were a neighbor and that herd went through your yard every night, or you couldn't get out in your yard, then to me, that would be a valid complaint. I mean, the deer come my property, even that's okay, there's only 4 or 5 at a time, but maybe, you know, if you had 30 or 40,
Yeah.
be a different matter.
What we've done in the past, this committee has done in the past, is rather than get into the quagmire of penalties and enforcement and fines, is simply make a reference when we forward the ordinance to council, a reference that should be addressed by city staff and council
Okay,
as to what my attitude is. Enforcement, finding, city staff is gonna know far, far better than us
I agree.
what is a problem and what isn't a problem. And we can give our opinions. I don't think, feeding this animal versus another should differ in fines, but that's just an opinion. The city staff would know best how to enforce it.
Well, and coordinate it with differing state laws.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with that.
The reason I brought it up was just because there's numerical inconsistencies in this issue, so if Suzanne can take care of that.
We'll look at
I'm
that.
done.
Yes.
There is, yeah.
You know,
We'll look.
90.22, 90.06. I think are the main two that I saw, it just. That's what I thought was hard to do, was food briefs. So.
Okay, is there anything else? On animals? You wanna get off your chest?
What are we doing with the storage? Just FYI.
Chickens.
That's just FYI.
Huh?
Just background. Right.
Yeah, it's, Deborah raised it because she said someone was interested in discussing it. It's my opinion, you can differ with me, is that we're not authorized to address chickens or not chickens. Chickens are not allowed in the city of Wood Creek. And while we can clarify the ordinance, we're not in a position to decide.
I agree. I don't think our opinion matters any more than anybody else's at this point.
Right, and I think the ordinance was put in there to show what the majority is.
I'm sorry, can I back up?
Sure.
On this barking dog noise complaint, it says return it to the municipal court clerk or deputy court clerk. Where do we, I thought we didn't have a court or municipal.
We don't have a, they just need to return it. Soon, maybe.
Okay, I just was wondering about that. If we did that.
That's the complaint form you're.
Yeah.
Right, I'm referring, okay, so just, okay. That's all I wanted to know.
The wording we're now using is a court of appropriate jurisdiction.
Yes,
Some
I can
phrase.
do that.
That's all I wanted to know. Sorry, I didn't have anything.
Okay, well, if nothing else, I'll close the workshop at 3:55. Move on to discuss and take possible action on any revisions to chapter 90 animals. The procedure would be that if you approve of all the changes made, then we would refer it to city staff to create the final wording to vote on that.
So, or we.
You can make a
discuss the
motion,
ordinance.
you can,
Will that be in red like this, or if we vote to approve that?
Well, then we could do it either way. We probably,
Same as the revisions were documented on the revision, where it says ORC revision on the documents in here, or
Yeah.
revisions that staff made, it would be noted the same way.
and then we would have a clean copy as well.
And then,
So we would have a red line and we would have a clean version of how it would actually look.
the reason those red lines and blue or green wording text is put in there is it may, if it goes to, for example, the council workshop, they may be interested. It may be easier for them to quickly see what was changed rather than trying to compare two black and white words.
Which is very confusing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would do a red line and then a clean version,
Okay.
just so you want to see how it would actually read. You don't have to look at all the stuff that's got crossed out.
so the option is to do that, or just tie it up and say we're done. Right?
Well, we have to refer to city staff to type up all the changes we talked about. And so then, just like we voted on the two ordinances we did last month.
Yeah.
We'll do that next month. We'll vote on it.
So the question is there any further discussion or is somebody ready to
Right.
make a motion? Okay, is there any, yeah, that's the question. Do you want to say anything?
But I would like to see what we talked about in that red line.
You won't be voting on the final document.
Yes.
You'll just be voting to have them type up all the
Okay,
changes.
I move to have city staff type up the changes we discussed today.
I second it.
Second it.
Canvass the committee, please.
Chair James Miller,
Yes.
Member Donna Hector,
Yes,
I'm so sorry, Vice Chair Joe Branco,
Yes.
and Member Emma Davenport.
Now we have Karen. Isn't Karen?
No,
official?
I'm just observing. James says I'm here, but I'm observing. I'm a citizen at the moment, absent.
She's in the woods.
I'm in the mountains, so you're gonna vote, Emma.
You can vote if you want.
You can vote if you want, Karen.
No, I don't want to vote. I missed half the meeting trying to get in.
So,
Go for it,
My vote
Emma.
is-
Suzanne, my vote is yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
We will, revise those. Suzanne will bring all the names, issues. And next meeting, we'll have the red line and a clean version. Y'all can make changes to it, because you did not adopt this document, you just kind of agreed to the changes, we're up to go ahead with it. So next one, you'll revisit again, and if you want to, you can recommend that to council. Or you can recommend it to council with recommendations, if you do something that's not right.
And on that document, are you going to work on the enforcement?
Yeah, I'll fix all that at the end.
And penalties.
So, yeah, so you'll actually, since we made changes to the changes for 93 and 94, 93 and 94 will be up there again. The city staff is touching it again for revision.
Oh, we have to vote on it again?
Then to which motion goes. Do you want to be able to see the final document?
Y'all did not vote on the final document. All you did was vote to
Finalize with edits.
finalize with edits. We will bring the document back to you. That's when you will vote on the document to recommend it to council. And then Jim will write up the little language and give it to Councilmember Hines, and she will present a recommendation to council.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
We're having the meeting on the 11th, is that?
That's under, announcement. The first Tuesday of next month is the 4th,
Oh, that's true.
and you are closed.
We are closed.
So I'm suggesting we move it to the 11th, which would be a week later.
I'm not coming in on 4th of July. It is, it's right.
No, I'm making sure we don't have another.
You won't have a quorum.
First Tuesday. June, July.
Hold on a second.
I don't know, another meeting, we'll have tree board there, we'll have council there.
So 10th, tree board, 11th, ORC,
They can do
12th,
ORC.
city council.
Mhm.
That's what's
Tree boards on the 11th, what time?
No, tree board is the 10th,
Oh, 10.
and then y'all will do the 11th if you so choose, and then the 12th would be council. Because planning and zoning will keep their regular date if they choose to do that on the 5th.
Mhm.
I don't think we have to take a formal vote on that, we can just take
No,
consensus.
Eleven
You
is
guys
fine for
right,
me.
okay, on the 11th?
Yeah, I don't see a problem, right?
Okay.
Karen, can you tune in on the 11th?
Yes, absolutely. But you're still gonna be the
The spotted woodpecker in on Black Mountain or something?
Is there a way, I mean, I'll just email Suzanne, but is Zoom better for me to call in? That worked. Except, I don't know if anybody else was trying to get in.
Oh, we can talk about that after the meeting closes.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm just wondering, Suzanne, if you had a copy of the animal ordinance that we just did.
Mhm.
There were so few changes, we seemed to agree. Em and I were just talking about how long it takes to get somewhere. Could we have have it where we could vote on it and send it to council? Next, or do we have to go
But
to
Joe,
another
but Joe said
process?
he'd really like to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't
See it,
do it
but-
personally. We
No,
voted on
I
it.
just want to know.
We would have sent the other ordinances to council today
Yeah,
if we hadn't made changes.
okay.
And so what happens, every time we change, it has to go back to city.
Okay,
Although, you understand, we don't create final documents.
Right.
right,
Yeah.
but I mean, just the ones we sent on. Okay, I just was trying to see if we could go faster.
He really wants to hit the gavel.
Yeah.
Oh, we're ready to.
Anybody else, any announcements? Okay, 402, we're done.
So we're done. We didn't say that, we just said.
Yeah,
I found that gap.
Yeah, you do that.
Only if I can go online and sign it.
What,
Yes.
Jim, have we picked out what we're gonna do next time? Or will Kevin assign it, or what?
I haven't talked to,
You'll call.
I haven't talked to Deborah. I was leaning toward parking.